Welcome to the Success in Africa podcast with Dr. Modupe, your weekly dose of leadership vitamins to make you successful in Africa.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Success in Africa podcast, brought to you by BCA Leadership and BCA Online. My name is Dr. Modupe Taylor Pearce, and I am a scholar and practitioner of leadership and organizational development. Simply put, I study what makes people successful. That's really what I do. And I've been doing this for 3 decades with a particular focus on people in Africa. Now, this is the first of 4 episodes that we're bringing to you from an hour-and-a-half interview that was conducted by Professor David Clutterback. And he interviewed 3 global legends of coaching who happen to also be African. There are a number of global legends of coaching, and 3 of them are African. And the 3 are Nankhonde van den Broek from Zambia, Dr. Dumi Magadlela from South Africa, and Dr. Modupe Taylor Pearce, that's me, from Sierra Leone. In this freewheeling interview, we discussed a whole range of leadership topics. Professor David Clutterback is a legend in the leadership development circle. And I encourage you to listen to this and the next 3 episodes. So, without further ado, enjoy the episode. Professor David Clutterback. David, you are welcome to the Success in Africa podcast. And I'm going to ask you to introduce the panel that we're going to have.
Okay. Well, I will allow them to introduce themselves as well. But let me start by just saying, I think the context of this is not just an African context; it's a global context. That leadership is in crisis. Wherever we are, and one of us is in New York right now, where the leadership crisis is perhaps all over the headlines. We have a wisdom deficit amongst leaders. We have all sorts of disconnections in society. We have disconnections. Boards are no longer connected or useful in terms, or as they should be, with the companies that they oversee. So this is a global problem, but it has different expression in different environments. And so I'd like to ask Nankhonde, would you like to start and just introduce yourself, and then I'll go on to Dumi.
Great. Thank you, David, and pleasure to be here, Modupe. I'm Nankhonde van den Broek, and I am a leadership advisor and a student of leadership, as well as a practitioner. And I say that because I believe just as much as being somebody who builds capacity in leaders, I am also consuming and having my own capacity being built. I'm an executive coach and have been working across the African continent over the last 15 years, supporting transformation in individuals, teams, and organizations. And it's a pleasure to be here to share and exchange with such a powerful group of people.
Thank you. And Dumi, Dumi and I go back a long way, so it's a pleasure to be on the panel with you.
Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dr. Modupe, Prof David, and Ms. Nankhonde. It's such an amazing time in the world where we're dancing with leadership challenges, technological advancement, AI now everywhere, and youthful populations in different parts of the world, in the global south, and aging population in other parts of the world. And then in the midst of that, coaching still relatively emerging in some parts of the world and being a resource that can do so much more. I don't think we have even seen the half of the potential of coaching to impact leadership that Nankhonde you're referring to, that David you're touching on with New York and others. And we don't have to mention Greenland or Venezuela or China or anything like that. We have to look at ourselves, each and every one of us. What's going on in my world? What's my scope of control? And for me, I'm a practitioner in executive coaching, in Ubuntu coaching. I've developed a concept called Ubuntu Intelligence that supports coaching and coaches. But I'm very interested in human connection at a fundamental level on how do I seek to connect with others. I've been working in people development for over 35 years, and as a coach for about 2025, and really understanding that human connection is at the heart of many of these things that we talk about. And then human disconnection is part of the pathology that is really superficial. Human connection is inherent and natural to us, as we showcase now with this widespread panel of geographically located coaches. I'm in Johannesburg, and Nankhonde, you're in New York, David, you're in the UK, Modupe in Sierra Leone, and we are here talking to each other as if we're sitting in the same room. This is the advantage of technology in helping us tackle leadership challenges today. So happy to be here with you guys.
Thank you. And Modupe, did you want to say a little bit more about yourself?
Thank you. I'm a passionate Pan-African, and my purpose is to support every single African to achieve success. And I believe very much that when it comes to success or failure, poverty or wealth, it all starts between the ears. And what we do as individuals is the key. And this is why I've dedicated my life to not only coaching people, but also to bringing the leadership enhancement and coaching to become the norm rather than the exception within Africa. So I'm very pleased to be here. I'm giddy with excitement at the knowledge and the experience that is gathered here. And I'm just hoping that we will be able to share so much that people will glean such great insights so that they can be successful in Africa.
Thank you. So why don't we start with the nature of the problem? So I'd like to put into how did leadership get in such a mess, and how can coaches help them to get out of it? It's a fundamental question. That's what coaching's all about. It's asking these really difficult questions. So, Nankhonde, do you want to start? How would you answer that?
Very thought-provoking question, and I think it starts for me with when we reflect on what is leadership. And I think when we look at especially leadership in our context and cultural environment, we look at the role of leaders as they have been positioned by the environment, whether it's the culture, whether it's the society, and we get our definition from how it manifests in terms of its purpose. There's somebody influencing another person or group of people to achieve an outcome. And that outcome can be either positive or negative, but somebody who is leading and supporting that direction, and others are following, in essence. And I think when we talk about how did it get into a mess, I think we have to start with what was it designed for initially to do in our systems. It was designed to bring some form of order, some form of development and nurturing and mentoring, as well as results at the end of the day. Now, where has it gone wrong, I think, is that over time, we have started to realize that as our context evolves, how we get results is changing, but maybe our approach to who leads and who supports or contributes is shifting in a way that is not meeting the evolving demands on society, on communities, on organizations. And as such, I beg to even think about humbly that the traditional leadership system has not met the new order of what technology has brought, what globalization has brought, and we're struggling to make a circle fit into a square box. And that's where I think the mess is starting, because what we are leading and where we are looking for results has changed in such a way that our tools don't meet and they cannot deliver the results we need. And how we get out of it, I think I'll let the others contribute and take us down that road. But I think fundamentally, we have gotten to a point where what we're trying to lead no longer fits how we lead.
And to put that into a European contrast, in a study that we did with the conference board a few years ago, into post-COVID leadership, HR directors across Europe were telling us that anything up to a third, in some cases more, of their top 200 or 300 were basically obsolete leaders. For two main reasons. They could not let go of command and control, and they could not think systemically. They were blinkered linear thinkers. And that these people are acting as role models to younger people in organizations and perpetuating the leadership problems. So it's a global issue, but it'd be interesting, how is that expressed, particularly within the African context? Dumi, do you want to come in next?
Yeah, for me, this is, Nankhonde, you're touching on something powerful there. And David, what you just said now around this individual hero, the days of the single hero are long dead, but we still have that now, today, in organizations around the world. So and so will lead us, so and so will lead us. And we personalize leadership and make it an individual responsibility. I love what you said, Modupe, that it starts between the ears. And it's that part of understanding that power is not in the individual, it's in the relationship. It's how we connect. Who am I in touch with? Who do I recognize as a part of what I can tap into or work with, collaborate with, cooperate with? Who can I work with to build something bigger than the both of us? Bigger than the conceptually thought out idea of you can lead us in this, you can do this. There are words in English that best describe what we see now with individual leaders. Superman is not coming to save you. If you are sitting in a slum in Johannesburg and you have no water and no electricity, you've got to work with your community to see, can we put up solar panels to clean up our neighborhood, to light up our streets so that there's no crime in the evening, at night. And it's not going to be some individual that's going to come and do that. It's understanding that in our localities, exactly what Modupe said, that what do you think of? What's between your ears when you think solution? You think someone needs to come and provide that solution. So it goes back to understanding who we are and what is the narrative, what is the teaching, what is the education from socialization and enculturation that has made us believe that the solution is out there, not in here within each one of us. We have outsourced our thinking about our value as leaders ourselves, and given that responsibility to someone else in so-called elected roles, or someone with some money, some NGO, some powerful individual somewhere. It's about coming back to the source, knowing that each and every one of us have the power to impact our world now, not tomorrow, now. It's how we choose what we do. Because Superman is not coming. We are the Superman and Superwoman together.
So I think I think it's marvelous that we're now beginning to evaluate and recognize the value of ancient wisdom. And I know we're going to be talking about Ubuntu because we can't possibly avoid it in a while. So that's good. But I was delighted yesterday to be talking to a very experienced coach in the Philippines. And he said, I base a large proportion of my coaching on Ubuntu. And I'm thinking, so we mustn't lose sight of the wisdom that can come from Africa to help Africa, and maybe to help the rest of the world as well. Modupe.
I'm going to take it from a slightly deeper historical perspective. I'm actually going to go to the biblical beginning of man, where leadership got messed up. Because, from the beginning, Adam was given instructions, and he did not have the courage to enforce the instructions when he was offered an apple. And the leadership of Eve also suffered because of selfishness. By its very nature, leadership is best when it is selfless. When the leader sees herself or himself as a servant seeking the good of the collective, as opposed to prioritizing her own desires or needs, especially in the short term. And from that perspective, it's even from way back then that leadership started getting messed up, because leaders were subject to thinking short term, and two, to thinking selfishly. Now, then you add to that, over years, of course, some leaders recognized the shortcomings of that perspective and would try to change it. And then sometimes the pendulum would go back to a bit of selfishness. In Africa, to compound on what Nankhonde shared, because power distance is so high, there is an even bigger tendency for budding leaders to simply copy what the older or the previous leaders have done. And that is especially damaging when you have bad examples. And so from there, you get the perspectives of people believing that their leadership is a big hammer that they should use to impose upon people, as opposed to a source of service for others. Now, where does coaching help? Coaching, provides that trusted partner, that thought partner who is trusted enough to shine a mirror on a leader and let the leader answer those tough questions that she or he may not want to answer, certainly not in public, and which, when they're being very honest with themselves, may help them understand that their actions may not be yielding the outcomes that they either desire or purport to desire. And that's how coaching really does help, because it in a sense forces the leader to come to terms with their own actions and the potential outcomes of those actions.
Thank you. So when some while ago we started to look at what does the literature, the academic literature, say about leadership, and there are over, I think, 5 million articles and books about leadership, and they all disagree. And one of the factors, one of the reasons they disagree, is because leadership is very contextual. In some work that we did some while ago, we looked at a fire service. You've got at least two completely different kinds of leaders. There's the guys at the top who are basically good at dealing with the politicians and working with all the figures and making sure the budgets, etc., work. And you've got the guys at the bottom who actually go and do the real hard work of going into a fire and saving lives and so forth. And what emerged from that was if somebody from the first group, the managerial group, said to a bunch of firefighters, "Look, there's somebody in that burning building. Come with me," they would all say back, "And you must be joking." But they will do this for the leader they respect, and there's a different kind of leadership. And so we tried to find what are the common characteristics that we can see in all the literatures and the contexts that make a leader. And we found 4 things, and they all happen to begin with C. So the first one is compassion. When people talk of a great leader like Nelson Mandela or whatever, compassion comes through very strongly. We talk about courage, facing up to the things that need to be done, asking themselves the questions that they don't really want to answer. Curiosity. Are they really concerned about? Do they want to see how other people perceive things? Curiosity is the antidote to polarization. And the last one is connectedness, which I see very much in terms of Ubuntu is one of the representations of connectedness. But these 4 areas, compassion, courage, curiosity, and connectedness, they're not just the core characteristics that we extracted from the literature about leaders. They're also the core characteristics we extracted from the literature about coaches. And I'd like to open this up for what do you think? What are your thoughts about this? I can see Dumi nodding away, but very strongly at this.
Can I jump in there, David? I love these 4 qualities because they relate really to what we're dealing with. And before Nankhonde Modupe come in there, just to say, when you check what are the largest, greatest leadership challenges the world is has faced in this century, the last, really, it comes down to a number of them. And these 4, for me, compassion, courage, curiosity, and connectedness, are at the heart of it. But what you mentioned something about how leadership is expressed, and that's where we see the quality of leadership in action. And one of the things is how leaders navigate crises, because that's when the character of leadership shows up. And right now, we talk about not navigating crisis, a crisis or crisis, but navigating polycrisis, which is multiple crises at the same time. That requires a level of thinking that demands a certain level of complexity that's not there in most leaders in the first place, let alone navigating those polycrises. And it requires leaders that can see around corners and see beyond what is right in front of them, and are perceptive, intuitive, and connected to the greater good of what it is that they are trying to do or who they're trying to be, to what end. And that ability to navigate polycrisis is what will equip the next leaders to emerge and lead successfully without being obstructed by the noise of who do I need to satisfy or please in that way. So I wanted to just build on the 4 that you said in that, navigating polycrisis as a quality of leadership that is non-negotiable going forward.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Success in Africa podcast. What you've listened to is the first part of a 4-part series. I hope you got something out of this. And I look forward to seeing you at the next episode when we will show you part 2. If you like what you've heard, please like and subscribe. Share this video, share this link with others, because together we can transform our beloved continent of Africa.
Tomorrow belongs to those people who prepare for it today. See you next week.